All right, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of the Fifth Dimension live video podcast. We are back live this week. I know we were on a little hiatus there. Life happens, shit happens. Life gets in the way, but for good times and bad times, but through it all, we're back. We're back here. Dave, we're back on the show for another live episode. Got a great guest tonight. What's going on, Dave?
Oh, more snow in Illinois. Gotta love it. Spring in Illinois. But yeah, glad to be back for another episode and look forward to speaking with our guest tonight.
Yep. Hey, hang on. All right. I want to make sure I don't get some bad reverb there. I want to let our listeners know, speaking of the reverb, just get all this stuff out of the way. You guys want to chat with us live during the show, you can welcome to do that on our YouTube channel. If you go to our YouTube channel and next to the live video feed, there is a chat room. It's not fancy, it's not much, but it works. It's free. You know me. If it's free, it's for me. Um, so subscribe to our channel. If you have a Gmail account, you can just easily get to it that way. It integrates together very nicely. Just go to our little bell at the top right corner of the screen. Hit that little bell. You can subscribe that way, or you can download YouTube. From what I understand now, has an app. You can download the app and actually listen to or watch YouTube videos and podcasts and stuff like that on the app. And you can also chat with us during the show that way. If you have questions for our guest or for us, you can follow us on Facebook, the Fifth Dimension Live Video Podcast. Look us up on Facebook. Hit us up on Messenger if you like. So there's several ways that you can ask us questions during the show, also with our guests. You can email us, the Fifth Dimension Radio Show at gmail.com. Those are several great ways that you can reach out to us. Um, Dave, we're up to 45 subscribers this week.
All right, building those
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah, building those numbers for hey, not too shabby for 13 episodes, I have to say.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. So, without further ado, I don't want to delay our awesome guest that we have for tonight. I was really looking forward to having this gentleman on tonight because he's a really close friend of mine and Dave's for a few years. He's, for those who don't know, that much about our guest tonight, he's the author of Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth. It's a different spin on the paranormal. I suggest you pick it up and read it because it's really a great spin and perspective about the paranormal. It's a great story. Chip's a great story writer, and I just suggest you pick it up. It's a great read. He also has a podcast radio show called Kindness Beyond the Veil, which takes on a different side of the paranormal. He has really great, interesting guests from time to time, just like we do. But without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Chip Reichenthal to our show. Chip, welcome to our show again. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Fifth Dimension.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Dave. An absolute honor to be with you, and always good to be with you anyway, because I love you. We've been brothers in arms for a long time now, and it's been awesome. It's like a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you on tonight, and
I'm excited to be here, man. It's awesome. Thank you
yeah,
so much.
we always have some great conversations together,
Right?
especially the three of us. We've been on many networks together in the past. Like Chip said, we go back a few years. Chip's not only a good friend, he's a mentor of mine in radio, and we go back and we've been on a couple of different networks together. We've had a lot of growing pains together with different several networks.
Right.
And we just landed, on different paths with different shows of our own. And so now, with that said, tell us about Kindness Beyond the Veil. Why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know what's going on with that show, what network, how can people listen to your show, and what it's about?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Kindness Beyond the Veil is a real passion project of mine, really. I think it's my fifth show, probably since I've known you. It runs on two networks, Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network at latenightinthemidlands.com. They call themselves WCET.FM now. And also on United Public Radio Network, which was the old UFO Paranormal Network. It's now United Public Radio Network. They run the show on the weekend at uprntalkradio.com. Also, probably the best place for archives of the show at the moment, uprntalkradio.com in their archive section. The show is live Mondays from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Late Night in the Midlands or WCET.FM at latenightinthemidlands.com, and is rebroadcast Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. The show really takes a kinder look at all the nether realms and unknown mysteries, the paranormal, the extraterrestrial, the psychic, metaphysical, scientific, to try to put a perspective in. Just like life is, our feelings are either fear-based or love-based. And the realm has gotten such a fearful look for so long that a lot of people, have positive encounters, benign encounters, loving encounters. And we just want to bring to the attention that they're there. That also applies to people that have had some sort of extraterrestrial or interdimensional contacts, because they're not all fear and loathing either, And in fact, there's a lot of the latest studies show that almost 3/4 of all extraterrestrial contact, at least in retrospect, is considered positive. People feel more spiritual, more loving, more benevolent. Sometimes the people have even been abducted, if you will, to be healed, from certain conditions that medical science has said would be hopeless. So you never know what kinds of things. And there's good psychics out there too. They're not all manipulative or out for money or some sort of recognition. And there are a lot of different ways that people can find healing, even from some chronic conditions. People have healed themselves from stage 4 cancers and paralysis. So we talk about that. We talk to shaman and tribal elders and channelers. And there is so much of that world that really has a love-based side to it that doesn't get a lot of recognition, but should be said, because life is like that too. We've got mass media that is really pushing us hard to be afraid, to be fearful, hateful, sad, depressed, unsure of anything. And, it ignores 50% of all we feel and experience. So it's really kind of, even though it is really geared to that rose-colored lens, I almost feel as though it has to be screamed from the mountaintops, because it's very rare that that sort of thing gets talked about in that way. And, and it's not, it's not about being famous or anything like that. It's about the fact that I have these phenomenal guests that are all heroes of mine, you yourself included. Actually, we had Matt on, and boy, that was one of our most rocking archives ever. But anyone that has changed the way that I looked at the world, or amended my beliefs, or inspired me, or taught me something new, I consider personal heroes of mine. So it's a real honor to present them to our beloved listenership, and to give our beloved listenership just a different glimpse of things. It's 2 hours a week where, they don't have to be frightened or afraid or put in a corner or told how to think. It is something to soften things, because when we feel better about our lives and ourselves, then our bodies heal, And so many people are constantly pounded from one fight or flight response to the next, from the moment they wake up to the end of the day, what social media or what the news is telling you, or what happens at work, or, how many kids, or if you have to jostle this or that, relationships falling apart and all this stuff. So in the nether realms, in the unseen world, there doesn't have to be extra fear, because that's more of a what if or woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of fear that we shouldn't be giving ourselves in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually want to take a second to commend you for putting together the idea of this show that you have, because it actually I feel that it's brave to go forward with something like that, because I feel that there are not enough topics and subjects and things that relate to those things that you just mentioned, that pertain to the paranormal. But I always feel the paranormal is more abroad rather than just ghosts and hauntings. And it's like you said, it has a lot to do with other things that people have theories on. And that's kind of how the fifth dimension kind of got created, because
Right?
we we wanted to try to, because it kind of jumped ship from a past show I used to do, and it was kind of a way to push that envelope forward on pushing these subjects out there.
Hmm.
And I kind of pat yourself on the back, man. I mean, I think that's great.
Well, you deserve a pat on the back also, because this is uh, really a next level kind of podcast that you're having here, and I understand the reasoning behind it, the inspiration behind it, and I really, really love and appreciate that. Also, when I had the honor of having you on Kindness Beyond the Veil, we did talk about the 5D realms, and it seems that this has become more of a thing that's crossed over to all the different realms. The psychic, the metaphysical, the ascension realm, the extraterrestrial and UFO, and the paranormal, and I mean, you name it. It kind of is starting to bleed into all of that.
Hmm.
And interestingly enough, and I know you're doing a lot of stuff coming up, throughout the summer and fall this year. I'm very excited for that, because I get, at least I always get updates.
Oh yeah.
I love to see how well you're doing. But it seems as though, and there's a lot of literature or talk about this in all the different realms. Our solar system is rotating throughout the galaxy. Is what it does, but
Hmm.
it's starting to push into a much higher energy area of that spiral arm, and it's bringing us a lot more charged particles into our atmosphere. Even as our sun presently is in its quiet phase, we're actually getting bombarded by charged particles more so than when it last in its active phase. And you can see it affecting people around us. People feel more. There are more people talking or referring to themselves as empaths or intuitives than there ever were before. But there's also a lot of people that don't understand why they seem to overreact a lot, or why their emotions go from one extreme to the next, when they really haven't changed anything in their lifestyle. And it's that energy. But that energy impacts the paranormal realm. It impacts the extraterrestrial or interdimensional realms, because, we are radiating this electromagnetic energy, most of which comes from our heart area. You'd think it was the brain because, there's neurons firing in a wet, watered down system. So you'd think that that's where all the most of it's from our heart. But it surrounds us with this layer of electromagnetic energy that competes or concurs with the geomagnetic environment around us,
Hmm.
and could actually impact the way some outside realm, like ghosts or spirits or extraterrestrials or fairies or whatever, see us, or even other people unconsciously see us. 90% of all our communication is nonverbal.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that if they walk into a paranormal setting, for example, with the expectation of being frightened, or the determination to face a fear, and so they're in defensive mode, that shows in the energy around. I mean, so I think that if people watch stuff on TV, you're doing a lot for the field, and God bless you for your paranology, and you're teaching and you're helping people and showing them how to do investigation properly, and God bless you for that. But people watch these TV shows, and every new one has more demonic and demon in the title than the last one did. People are watching this stuff, and they're seeing people go in and really taunt these spirits so they can get something for the camera and the studio audience. and then they leave the place behind. But that hasn't changed that energy that they've created.
Yeah.
So whoever lives there or has to visit there has to deal with it now.
Yeah.
So it shows bad form and method, and a lot of people don't realize that it's bad form and method. But the thing is, as long as you go out of your way not to be fearful, to look at anything in this fascination through a lens of fascination rather than fear, things would go better for you. It's almost people get what they expect to get in a lot of situations where they don't even have to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you explain stuff. You can tell like that it comes from your heart. You can tell how passionate you are, behind all this. But Dave, what are your thoughts so far on everything that Chip has brought up so far?
Interesting stuff. I'd be really curious to hear how he first got involved in the field and what led him down this path.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Unlike a lot of people that had experiences when they were young, or a majority of the paranormalists that I've had the honor of meeting and befriending and loving, almost everybody that's in the industry, it's not like people wake up and say, today I'm going to go ghost hunting. Ghosts choose them. They don't choose ghosts. Something grabbed them when they were a kid in their bedroom, or pushed somebody that they know or love, or something happened that was very unsettling to them, and it becomes something that they have to conquer. My situation was completely different. It wasn't when I was young. About a week before my 21st birthday, which was a long time ago. I think that we still had horse carriages then, my best friend from childhood, I'd known him all my life, basically. We moved into our neighborhood when I was 2 years old. He lived next door. And pretty much from that day on, we were like the best of friends, And it was the kind of friendship where it didn't matter who was stronger and bigger, who had more toys or anything. It wasn't a competitive thing, If I really wanted to do something, he went with the flow, and vice versa, So it probably, I guess, my first soulmate, though I was too young to know it at the time. And close to my 21st birthday, he had been hit by a drunk driver. He was riding a motorcycle. He was in Florida. I was in upstate New York at the time. It was a Lincoln Continental that hit his motorcycle, ran a red light, hit him, and drove him right through that car head first. So he was brain dead when they brought him to the hospital. Right? Not dead, brain dead, kept alive artificially. And I still consider it fortunate to say that it wasn't until almost 21 that I had suffered the loss of somebody that close to me. I think that's pretty fortunate. A lot of people have deaths a lot earlier. But he wasn't dead. So, how do you process it? How do you grieve somebody who's not dead? How do you not grieve somebody who will really never have full usage of their brain? Brain dead, right? So anyway, eve of my birthday, I'd been working 2 jobs, and I didn't really have any time to process. So I took the night, got a quart of Colt 45, man. That was the stuff back then. Like the perfect buzz. You didn't need anything else, But anyway, to try to help process this and figure out how I was just going to put it all together. And at one point through rather late in the evening on this swing set in my parents' backyard, there was this energy on the swing next to me. To this day, I can't really accurately explain it. Best to describe it as like that Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator movie, where you see he's there but not there. It's a stealth thing, or like the way you see heat rise on a real hot day, except this was kind of in the silhouette of a humanoid. And I never had any kind of experiences or encounters like that, never thought to. But, I was mellowed thanks to the Colt 45 and just casually curious, like, is there something here, somebody here, And it was him. And I heard him, not with my ears, but I heard him in my head. And look, I had in this 2 weeks that this was going on, had lots of conversations in my head with what I would say, and what he would say back. But that was my inner dialogue speaking for him, in my little kind of inquiry of what I would say. But this thing and what he said is something beyond anything I ever would have even dreamed to think about. Basically, first he said, yeah, it's me. I know it's your birthday soon. I wanted to wish you happy birthday. We're very aware of each other's birthdays, And then he said, but I also came for your blessing because I want to give up. I want to die. And look, this kid was like always wanted to be independent. He ran away from home a bunch of times. Can't tell you how many times the police would come to my classroom in school and pull me into the office because they wanted to know if I knew where he was. And it was not because he came from a bad home. It's just he wanted that independence. He wanted the opportunity to be out there in the world making decisions on his own. I mean, it was just, and even knowing his will to independence, I tried to talk him out of it, Oh, come on, hang in there, man. You don't want to die. Science will come around. They'll find something. And he's like, no, they won't. And I'm like, how do you know if you don't give it a chance? I'm really trying. And then finally, he put me in his shoes. He put the whole perspective in a way I could understand at that young age. We don't generally have a lot of foresight at that age. At least we didn't back in the 70s, But he said, hey, let's say you came to visit me. What would you do? Would you try to spoon feed me some Jell-O? I'd choke to death. I can't eat. They've got tubes feeding me. Would you talk to me and expect me to listen? I wouldn't know what you say because I can't think. I can't talk. I can't move. I've got nurses coming in, cleaning up after my going to the bathroom and bathing me. It's the most invasive thing imaginable. There are worse things than death. So I want death, and I came for your blessing. And once he put it in a perspective I could really grasp and understand, it hit me, the gravity of the moment, the sweetness of this gesture. And I got it, and I said, okay, I get it now. Sure, man, I love you. I get that. Absolutely, you have my blessing to do that. I'm glad you asked me for it. He could have been anywhere. He could have been with his family or with doctors or nurses in the hospital, but here he is with me, half a country away. And he thanked me, and shortly after that, boom, that energy was gone. The swing next to me was just a swing next to me that had always been before. And I kind of weighed the gravity of that. Yeah, I also said, hey, if there's a way you could visit after, could at least try. He said he'd try. He has since. But anyway, so I'm wallowing in that for about 10 minutes, maybe 15, and my mother comes out of the house. Now, I've known my mother all my life. She's not up at 3 a.m. ever, let alone out of the house. And she came out to tell me that my buddy Steven's parents just called. They flew from New York to Florida to do the toughest thing in their lives and unplug him. And they wanted me to be the first to know that he's dead. He's been dead for 10 minutes. So in that moment, it occurred to me that I had audience with my first soulmate, my best friend through all childhood, at the moment of his death.
Wow.
And that's not how anybody talked about death back then. Nobody talked about it. Churches didn't talk about it. Parents didn't talk about it. School didn't talk about it. Friends didn't talk about it. Acquaintances. Nobody talked about that stuff, especially out loud, Yeah. And I couldn't talk to anybody else about it because, then you get the freak label and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of took me on a very independent path to find answers to that. I had to know, because this was different than everything I've ever been told or anybody's ever told me. And it didn't make sense, and I had to make sense of it. So that was my path. But because it was my best friend, my first experience was from a loving place, which made me different than anybody else that I've ever met in the paranormal industry. It was something negative or traumatic or fearful or very disconcerting to them, and they had to find answers to face that fear. Mine was a loving end, My wife's dad visited us a year after his passing. That's a story for another day. But so really, my first two experiences were loving. But because of how my best friend had me think in terms of where he is rather than what I think, it changed the way that I have ever and will ever investigate. If I go on investigations, we try to do good research, go to the historical society or the town hall, get information about who may have lived or died on or near the property that we're going. So you get some basic idea of who you could be having some sort of communication with. Do the research. If it's somebody that died in 1860, try to speak to them in the language and the culture of the time period of 1860 rather than 2019. Which expects you to be okay with everything. We're okay with this year. Shame on you for not being okay with it 100 years ago or 20 years ago or 5 years ago. No, you try to and think of any chance of communication as the greatest honor in the world. Something interdimensional is reaching out to you. That's one of the most loving acts. And they have to reduce their energy to do it. You have to raise yours in order to meet them. So the least I can do is treat any kind of encounter as with unconditional acceptance and no judgment. It's not my job to judge people. There are lawyers and divinities for that. I mean, I went to high school with kids who ultimately grew up and killed people. All right. But when I knew them, they were churchgoers. They were generous. They were kind. They would mow their next door neighbor's lawn because their next door neighbors didn't move around so well and wouldn't charge them. So these people, even though they'll be branded and remembered in this lifetime and beyond for that one gravitous mistake they made, it erases anything generous, kind, and loving they've ever done. And that's not fair to any given soul. So if I come across the spirit of a murderer, don't ask them about that. Ask them what they're proud of, how they're feeling, and make it clear. Look, you may think of me as trespassing here, and I'm sorry for that. I'm lost, and I'm not from around here. I mean no harm, and please forgive me for that. I mean, even the Slate app, and it's amazing the kind of conversations or encounters you can have. Yeah. I've never had a negative EVP or negative encounter, including with actual shadow people that other people like 5 minutes later saw as shadow people. I had some laughs with them. I would never have known. And treat as you want to be treated.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that with us, Chip. That was such a great experience that you had that you were able to share with the public. I mean, it had to have been so hard, at your age to, like you said, how to process something like that. Because like you said, back in those days, it was stuff that, you were labeled as
you couldn't dare talk.
No, it was all taboo back then. And, it wasn't like, how if you just say the word paranormal, people come charging at you like from the droves and like, oh yeah, I'm into that. It's so much different from how it was like then, how it is now. Like and I just love how you can relate and your analogy and how you explain your experiences and things. I really enjoy that. It's just that part of Chip Reichenthal. I love that part of Chip.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
But it also paints a different picture. And look, you and I, you guys, and I have come across some paranormal investigators that are really, really good at what they do. A lot of them do not receive enough recognition, and some of the ones that are getting the recognition might be good-hearted, might be good in practice. But once they get onto a network that has advertisers and producers that have to be conscientious of time, schedule, cost, and money, then they are pretty much enslaved to the process. So it doesn't matter what's in their heart. It's what we see as a bottom line.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not saying a show about paranormal kindness would be all that enthralling.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
want to see the fear. I think we
yeah,
we like to slow down at a motor vehicle accident so we can see
yeah.
the crap, and that's
Right.
just part of our nature. But there's a
Yeah.
whole nother side to it.
Sure. Speaking of a whole nother side to it, what in your experience on your show or in on any show, if you could think of a moment where a guest or a person or a call-in, what are some of the most craziest experiences somebody has ever shared with you as far as an idea or a theory pertaining to um, something crazy about the paranormal that made you really go, "Ooh, that's really, that's something." What made you go, "Wow"?
Well, interestingly enough, I've had a few like that, and for the most part, they came on as experts in extraterrestrial contact, rather than paranormal contact. But I guess it's changed the way that I'm seeing everything,
Mm-hmm.
because they're actually mentioning, and I know that we sometimes think about all the science behind this is, oh, come on now. Uh, but this is it's gotten really interesting. I guess some of my favorite people are all involved in this one nonprofit group called the Free Foundation. Free is an acronym. It's in the honor of Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, that Edgar Mitchell. And, he was on the moon, and came back a changed man, saw this planet because he saw it as this little marble,
Mm.
in a completely different light, but also had some experiences there that changed his thinking, and even did an ESP test while in space. The old ones with the 6 cards, the circle, the star, the
Mm-hmm.
squiggly lines, and that. All right. And here he is. He's on the moon. That's 30 light seconds from here. So Houston calls the moon. It takes 30 seconds for that, transmission. He responds, takes 30 seconds to return to Houston. But when they hold the card up, he would instantly have an answer. His results were 76%, which is way above chance. But he also discovered that the telepathy between the testing is faster than light, because he knew in an instant what it took 30 seconds to transmit. See, so he started looking at consciousness as an energy form, and in ways that would also explain some of these nether realms, ghosts and spirits, extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings, divinities, angels, fairies. I mean, all these different things. And we've been at a lot of these conventions,
Mm-hmm.
even as paranormalists, you do get some people coming up to your booth and sharing some extraterrestrial contact or abduction story with you. And there's two kinds of people we know from experience. There's the people that, I don't know, it's something a little fishy about what they're saying, or the way they're saying it, where it just doesn't feel quite genuine, because there are people that want to be more special than they feel about themselves, or want to stand out, or looking for a TV deal. I mean, you know the kind of people I'm talking.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also people that, as they tell the story, it's palpable to them. They're like reliving this experience in front of you. You can see their eyes welling up, or the way that their entire body language just kind of changes. And it becomes much more believable, because you see them reliving the process and you go, oh my God. And look, whether we agree with that sort of thing or believe in that sort of thing or not, they do. It's become their reality. So who am I to take that away from them? With the exception of the former kind of people that, are a little squirrely, or just trying to, sound more interesting than they are. And you take those things into consideration. But they're talking about quantum holographic theory, or torsion energy, or chi energy, or orgone energy, that they look at with something that is smaller than atomic particles, and not actually matter, perhaps, but force. Usually it's like this spiraling force that changes the way particles, atoms, and matter move. And the consciousness, they're showing can really, anything that's living and thinking expels this kind of force, this torsion energy, if you will, this orgone energy. And it's not like string theory per se, but it's a substring type of thing because it's a force that changes the way that matter flows or manifests. And they're actually thinking that like black holes could be the hard drives of the universe. We have to assume if there's, trillions and trillions of stars, planets, galaxies, systems, whatever, it's almost impossible for us to be the only life ever in the entire universe if there's only one universe. So they think that maybe black holes are the hard drives that pushes this, or in extraterrestrial contact, it's telepathic by nature. It's not like these little green men they call the Greys are speaking. They're sending you these messages. Some people interpret them as symbols or some sort of download of information that it will take them a while to figure out how to process. Or sometimes you can have conversations in your head with these things, at least from the people that they've monitored who've had these kind of contact. And if telepathy is faster than the speed of light, then consciousness is faster than the speed of light. And this force of torsion energy or quantum holographic energy would therefore, if it's faster than light, according to Einstein's relativity, that means it would go backward in time, or the speed of light itself, there is no time, A light photon can travel across the entire universe, in an instant. We won't even know. Because there is no time to this thing.
Right.
So if spirit or extraterrestrial uses light or consciousness to travel or manifest, that takes time and space completely out of the picture. There have been reports of extraterrestrials whose flights or whose ships, physical ships, are all created in their own mind. They can steer it with their mind. They can build it with their mind. They can bring you onto it and keep you stable with their mind. So it makes you think about all sorts of things. And it brings up again, if this kind of force changes the way time works from our understanding, then it's just as possible that we're communicating in a paranormal setting with somebody who's alive in 1841 and thinks we're a ghost.
May the force be with you.
Yeah, indeed. And because of gravitational waves and all this new thing that they're proving 100 years after Einstein talked about it, it means that there's a lot of small time and space warps. If space warps, time warps.
Yeah.
So and there are a lot of areas, big paranormal settings that have known energy anomalies. Places where balls roll uphill and cars push themselves. That's that sort of thing. So if that anomaly in the geomagnetic environment is already there, imagine the kind of little gravity and time pulls.
Yeah.
People don't really think in terms of time because we think of time as one straight arrow. Because from our perspective, it's moment to moment. What's in the past is behind us. We don't know what's ahead. We just know the right now. Yeah. But that's not how the energy of the universe and physics or atoms work.
Right. Right. This is like that. This is probably Dave right up your alley with all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And also when you mention Edgar Mitchell, he was a founding member of the IONS Institute or Noetic.
Noetic Institute, right.
Where Dean Radin does a lot of his work, and then some of the recent experiments that Dean's been doing with the consciousness and the double slit experiment. With is it a wave? Is it a particle? And when you observe it, not only is he finding that when you observe it with equipment or watch it, but if you think about it, so he's starting to find some evidence that it seems like your consciousness can collapse certain wave functions and change the outcome of those experiments. Still a little controversial at this point, but
well,
it
but
does
it's
look like there's enough there to at least keep looking into it. So all
well,
that feeds into what
he's
Peter's
trying
doing.
though, but he is in the bind of being under the standard model philosophy of having to recreate situations in a laboratory setting that are simply not something recreatable on command. You know, it's just like I can't stand here and say I want to see the spirit of my mom now.
Yeah.
Because the spirit of my mom is on a completely different time schedule. My buddy, my childhood best friend, you know, I told you, I said, oh, hey, I hope you can visit me after. And I told you he did, you know. Saw him at my wedding. I saw him 2 days before my daughter was born. Once he came to me and he told me that he sees himself as something similar to a light particle, but with a little difference, a moderation of some kind. And he said, he could talk to me right now, and in his tomorrow, even though there's no such thing, could visit me 30 years ago if he wanted. It took me 5 years to wrap my head around that, you know.
Yeah.
Physics hadn't even caught up with that when he told me that. I mean, that kept me awake for, you know, like years.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
Does he still contact you? Because I've heard certain people say that they're contacted over and over again through the years, but other people say it seems like after a certain amount of time they're not contacted anymore. And no, I always wondered why that would be. Did they lose interest?
No, it could be a whole matter of different things, you know, from my perspective. And I did have a period in my life, about 7 years, where I had spirit mediumship, you know, like this flow of it. I kind of had to let it go because it became too emotional after a while, which had a bad bearing on me physically because of a health issue. But with all the different encounters that I'd had and interactions that I have or continue to have with spirit, last time I saw him, he said that he's in a new lifetime now, you know, and I've met the person who is his reincarnation, if you will. And he won't tell me who it is. He's also remarked on some past life encounters that we've had in places we've been in past life. But I think it's more about, as we said, people don't choose ghosts, ghosts choose people. But visitations often occur for various reasons. First and foremost, an affirmation that they are hearing your thoughts and prayers in their regard, that they do know that you're thinking about them or grieving over them or missing them, and they do love you and they're trying to do whatever they can to make your life better, even though they don't really have potential force or power to really impact that or change your own free will or fate. You know, it's still the best intentions. They can guardian angel for you, but sometimes spirits stop visiting because it's no longer time or that does benefit to either party, you know, and sometimes they do enter into a different lifetime. Because of the mediumship, I come to believe I was not a past life guy. Look, I do past life regressions as a clinical hypnotherapist, very proud of that. But even then, you don't have to believe in a past life for that. That's something therapeutic. It fills in some gaps, you know. Why does my sister hate me so much? And then you to a past life where you killed her or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. But some of the spirits that I've encountered, some of the earthbounds that I crossed over in the time that I had to do that came back and visited once crossed over and told me how their perception of things had changed. One guy was real biblical. He didn't know he was dead. He refused to believe he was dead. He was a real powerful guy. His heart gave up like that. Some guy in Connecticut, a big lawyer in the 20s, refused to believe he was dead. No. You know, life handed me everything I want. Death wouldn't hand me that card. No way. And it took me a long time to convince this guy and finally cross him over. And when he crossed, here's a guy that lived by the Bible, died by the Bible, and came back and said, I now see my lifetime as a series of lifetimes. Sometimes as a man, sometimes as a woman, sometimes as an animal, a fungus, an amoeba. Each of these lifetimes was for a specific lesson. So as I go through these lifetimes and my soul gets more and more wisdom and finally get to that old soul type of place, each lifetime brings me ultimately closer to God, you know? So by the time that this lifetime is up, at least on this planet, we either go to somewhere else or become at one with this light energy, this singularity, this God or source or whatever you want to call it, or with your divinity, you know? And that stunned me.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back a little bit into your experience with your friend. Um, you know, I know there are some people who are, you know, really getting heavily involved with telepathy. I don't know why we're not more, because of the theory and ideas behind telepathy and how telepathy works.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of brought it up in past conversations on the fifth dimension before, on past episodes, where it really gives more credence to the idea that is it possible that because certain individuals, you know, even like yourself or for me or for Dave or anybody who's had a personal experience, for them, did they have that personal experience because it was through a telepathy experience? Was it through telepathy and communication of that? And that's why only they had that experience.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah, I
like,
do.
um, what are your thoughts on that, both of you guys?
My honest thought is it depends on whatever their bias, preconception, or pre-belief is.
Hmm.
Somebody can, you know, I mean, you always hear about the twin flames, soulmates, couples that can finish each other's sentences or can sit in a room and have a complete conversation without opening their mouths. We know people like that. And that's one thing. And you go, oh, it's because we love each other and whatever. But if it's with a spirit or an extraterrestrial or a fairy or werewolf or whatever, they go, well, that's just not natural because it goes against maybe a dogmatic religious belief or something that they've been taught. You know, a lot of people that have experiences like this are extremely logically minded. Always seems to happen to physicists and scientists and lawyers, you know, but to change their perspective. But the truth is, if you think about just our species, modern Homo sapiens, 100,000 years or so, modern Homo sapiens, 60,000 or so years that we've been here. And people forget that before there was housing, plumbing and heating, you know, artificial light, technology, you know, radio, TV, computers, and all that stuff, we were part of the food chain. And there had to be something with us to know in the pit of our gut as we walked around the jungles at night that there was a predatory animal stalking us, because without that intuition, that sixth sense, we wouldn't be here to talk about it. It was actually not only an actual thing, this sixth sense that we've been mocking for the last couple thousand years, it was essential to our survival. To this day it is. You can watch Discovery ID channel, you know, and see the reason this woman survived and the other one didn't is the woman just had this feeling that she was being followed, or something in her gut that said, don't get on that plane, you know? And because we, as in general in this culture, dismiss that sort of thing, we're putting ourselves in jeopardy. So people can have telepathic encounters and say, nah, that's just my imagination. That wouldn't happen to me. You know, when I first started seeing dead people, that's what I said. I thought I was losing my mind. I'm not meant to be a medium. I don't know anything about this stuff. Why am I seeing dead people? You know, so everything, even mediums themselves. You could talk to 15 mediums to encounter the same spirit of someone's family member, and they would have 15 different conversations, ask 15 different kinds of questions, have 15 different kinds of approaches, because it starts and ends with our own preconceptions, judgments, biases, beliefs. You know, as a hypnotist, that's the thing that stops us from going under, or why people don't want to meditate. I can't meditate. A, I don't have time, and B, I don't want to lose control. I'm not going to listen to a guided meditation. Nobody's going to hypnotize me because only I can control myself. You know, it's the subconscious mind. It's this supercomputer that's recalled everything you've ever seen, smelled, felt, tasted, touched, or sensed since birth and perhaps beyond.
Mm.
But it's got the emotional capacity of a 2-year-old. It's the thing that says, okay, if I want to quit smoking, I'll just smoke more and more. I'll get sick of it eventually. And it's guarded by these super systems called judgment, bias, belief, conditioning, and to successfully put somebody under hypnosis, you have to appeal to those guards and say, dudes, take a smoke break for a while. I'm not going to screw anything up, I swear. And then you can start subtly reprogramming, people to be better at their jobs or feel more confident, or lose weight or quit smoking or go to a past life or whatever. But those same things impact any kind of unseen communication or taboo thing like, telepathy. A lot of people think that's evil. It goes against God. It goes against society. And we just don't do that kind of thing. So that's always there to stop people from just blindly accepting that not only are they capable of it, anyone can do it and improve it.
Yeah. I almost feel like we had the return of Chipism there for a little bit. That's going back. Right. That's going back a long way.
It is. Yeah, I'm thinking about bringing that back.
Yeah, Dave, your thoughts on what we were talking about with telepathy?
Well, I think from even a scientific standpoint, if you look at the parapsychological literature, the data's there. It's actually, the data is even stronger in some cases than some pharmaceutical trial drugs that we have decided that are good to take and have an impact. I mean,
there's no control group or placebo, though. It either shows up statistically or it doesn't.
The effect sizes are decent. They're better than some drug studies, as I said, and they're stronger than, or they're in line with at least a lot of the other effect sizes you see, certainly in the social sciences, maybe a little less in the physical sciences, but because they have enough people behind them in trials, it's something there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole idea with ghosts and telepathy and communicating with spirits that way, I think, again, as you said, it depends on who you're talking to and what they believe.
Yeah.
If you go way back into late 1800s, early 1900s, Tyrrell, Gurney, Myers, they all believed in the telepathically induced hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you think about it, if you have a group of people that maybe 4 people, 2 of them see or hear or have an experience, the other 2 don't, how do you explain that? Well, obviously there's not something physically present there. Right. So they could be interacting telepathically. Then, of course, with telepathy, there's just different variances of it, from clairvoyance to psychometry. I mean, you're basically reading information and picking it up through something besides your normal senses. So I think there's a lot of ideas out there. The problem, obviously, is always going to be convincing those who just aren't going to believe or who don't think there's anything to this. Because they'll come back and tell you, well, you're trying to explain one unknown with another. It's like,
I've come to think that I
disagree with that, but
I've come to think that it's not my place to try to talk them into it. I present my perspective, and but the irony is, some of the greatest experts of the kind of science that we're talking about, that includes paranormal and metaphysical, started out as the most logically minded people they know. They self-confessed absolute non-believers. Not even skeptics, cynicists.
But some of them have looked at the data, and with an open mind, like you're supposed to do, they've come to decide that there might be something to it. And some of them have become strong proponents of it.
Yeah. And the irony is, when we're comparing it to studies on medicine has a control group, which is some were given a sugar pill, some were given an actual medicine. And a lot of times the control group given the sugar pill has better reactions to the medicine than the actual medicine does.
Yeah.
Which is and the interesting thing there is some people are claiming that placebo effect is growing, making it harder to find a effect from the drugs, which is a whole nother interesting concept of potential mind over matter.
Yeah, it is.
Do I
Because
take the red pill or do I take the blue pill?
right, but there's no belief system to interfere with because it is a blind study. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's something
Unless
within
you
you that
start getting
says,
crazy.
"Hey, I must have the good thing because I'm feeling this." That's a self-suggestion. It's almost a self-hypnotic suggestion.
Yep.
But but the same concern that I have, and God bless Dean Radin, by the way, he's working with the Free Foundation also. He's part of that, which is very cool. But I think I see people on social media that see that their lives are not going well. Their lives kind of suck when they shouldn't suck, or it's always one step forward, two steps back. And they start blaming a negative attachment or some sort of demonic possession to account for these things. And what that does is it takes their own personal power completely out of any solution. And that's the kind of thing that concerns me enough to have the Kindness Beyond the Veil type of show, because I don't think they realize how much personal damage they're doing to themselves by removing their own ability to solve their problems out of the picture and blaming it on something invisible.
Well, that's where we come in.
Right. Well, it depends on what show you watch, because at least one of them, 90% of everything is demonic. So how do you believe otherwise?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
shows that I can't watch shows like that.
I tried. Yeah. I tried again today. I couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
One of the great things about the Fifth Dimension is that we produce our own show. We can go over a few minutes, but without having our producers yell at us.
Okay.
But yeah, we're getting near the bottom of the show, so I want to a lot room for Chip to kind of tell our listeners about. I'd love him to share information about Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth, because it's a great story. Maybe give a little synopsis about the book a little bit, where they can get it, how they can get it, and
yeah, I'll give you a brief one too. Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth is kind of my first person perspective when I had the mediumship go. And I had because I asked a lot of very tough questions to these spirits, if you will, that I encountered and got some very interesting answers. But instead of making it some nonfiction book like every other medium in the world has out, I instead put it in the guise of a murder mystery. It's almost a psychic murder mystery, if you will, where the central character is a professional spirit medium whose best friend from high school, 20 years ago, has now been charged with murder. There was the murder of the best friend's high school sweetheart. They were the super couple. The best friend and his sweetheart were like the alpha couple, the prom queen and the prom king, big man on campus. Fast forward 20 years, best man now in jail, charged with the killing of this girl, who was the prettiest girl in town. And the best friend was never into any of that talking to the dead stuff, but they were best friends nonetheless. They just never really got. But now he's desperate. Circumstantial evidence is very damning. So the best friend asked our medium if he can encounter the murder victim to try to get some sort of alibi evidence in favor of the friend. So it kind of turns into like this basic psychic murder mystery, but includes a lot of first-person perspectives from the medium, and some philosophy and some of the other, like, really interesting stuff. So it's like 18 books in one. It's a short read, about 4-hour read. It's a page turner. I say that, objectively, even for me. And Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth can be found at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and from the publisher Rowe Publishing, ROWE, at rowepub.com.
Great.
And and Amazon has the Kindle version too.
Nice. Yeah. I have the autograph version.
Yes, you do.
The best one.
Yeah.
I have the picture of that encounter.
Yes. Yeah. Going back many, many years, how Chip and I met was funny, because when Chip had a show years ago with a different partner of his at the time, they were giving away tickets for an event up at Lake George, and I was an avid listener of their show,
Yes.
and I was calling in to try to get tickets because I wanted to go so bad,
Yep.
and I had no way of going. So I said, I'll give it a shot. I'll call them up and see what happens. And I call up, and I won tickets, and that's how we met. And
Well, we had been by that time very well aware of you because you were
yeah,
always in chat and always had really cool questions to ask. You were one of
yeah.
those people that we really looked forward to, and we could say, "Boy, I'm glad we got listeners like this Matt Haas here."
I
And,
have
and meeting you in person at that event was, even better than I imagined, and I imagined it was going to be awesome.
at
You know,
times my mind can be inquisitive.
always a good thing. I love an inquisitive mind myself.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a great show. Again, you can only, talk about so much in an hour, again.
It
Um,
was a quick hour, man.
yeah, no, but it was a great conversation. I love, I hope we, um, open some eyes and open some minds, with our conversation, because I really think we should push the envelope a little bit more when it comes to those types of conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, the
And I'm
status
glad that
quo hasn't been working. Nobody's proved anything yet.
yeah, yeah,
Kind of
definitely.
opened the
But
box a little bit to get there, I think.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So
But
I
thank
mean,
you for the honor of having me here on your podcast. I'm going to have you back on mine soon.
yeah, sure.
Uh, may even have a different show coming up in addition, so,
Okay.
which will bring about more openings, but it's way too early to talk about that at the moment, but it's coming.
Okay. All right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
we look
Excellent.
forward to it. Whatever future endeavors you have in the works, I'm sure will be great.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Again, we're extremely honored that you came to be a guest on the Fifth Dimension live video podcast.
Thank you.
Again, for those who are just joining us late, we've had the honor of having Chip Reichenthal as our guest. He's the author of Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth. You can listen to his radio show called Kindness Beyond the Veil, which takes on different perspective of the paranormal, not just ghosts and hauntings, but the extraterrestrial kind, and other, various topics within the paranormal, not just ghosts and, hauntings and stuff like that. So, we're really excited to have that kind of show out there. So, if you have time, check it out. We'll post this show up on our Facebook page if you missed it. You can
Awesome.
always catch our show again on YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel. Hate mail can go to Fifth Dimension Radio Show at gmail.com, as always. Dave, any closing thoughts?
No, interesting conversation. Thanks to our guest. I thought it was really informative, and looking forward to coming back in one more week and doing this all over again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice having a chance to talk to you again there, Dave.
Yeah.
Been a while.
Excellent.
And of course,
Thanks.
you, my brother Matt.
Yeah.
I love you, man.
Yeah.
That'll never change.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. Back at you. You always have, a place here. I mean, you know.
Right
I'm
back
a
at
man of I'm a man of many words when it comes to that stuff. But anyways, guys, well, I think next weekend is Easter, so if I'm not mistaken, so we may have to change our show day for like Friday night or something like that. But we'll keep everybody updated.
Okay.
We'll have to yeah, with Dave, we'll have to talk about that because we have Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then Easter all in one weekend. So
We'll figure it out.
yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't want to ruin the fun for anybody over Easter weekend. So. But anyway, guys, Game of Thrones, enjoy it if you're Game of Thrones
That's right.
fans. Yeah. All right. So have a great rest of the weekend, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Take care,
All
everyone.
right. Take care.